you're not looking for the outside world to make you happy. That's what everybody does, right? It's like when I get the car, I'll be happy. The husband, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the house, the smaller butt, the new nose, whatever it is. And then guess what? You know this, right? You get that thing finally, and how long are you happy? It happened to me with the big house. I'm not happy. I wasn't happy for very long because then you want the next thing, and it puts you on a hamster wheel for the rest of your life. So yeah, I mean, working on yourself is the total key here.
Hello, everyone. It's time for another episode of the Difference Makers podcast here at Ramos Law, and I'm your host, Dr. Jim Hoven, and today I'm super excited. I'm kind of getting to talk with someone I'm a fan of, and that I don't get to do that very often, so this is super, super cool for me. This is someone that our wonderful person, Alexis, that helps us get guests found, and when she found this, she sent me the stuff. I've been looking at it, and all of a sudden, I'm consumed with the amazing gift that this guest has. And so I don't want to take any more time, like kind of mystery shrouding it, but I do want to tell you today, you are going to learn some things. You are going to hear from someone who has shared a message of love and entertainment and mind-blowing abilities around the world to people of incredible importance and stature and statute, as well as for people just regular like you and me. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you Mr. Brent Webb. And Brent, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jim. And it's my pleasure to be here.
So I got to tell you, for people that don't know you, if I were to say, hey, you and I are walking down the street and we're going together, we go into a sports bar, we're at a restaurant or something, and I meet someone that I know, and they're like, hey, Jim, who's your friend? And I say, oh, this is Brent. And they ask me, okay, Brent, what does Brent do? How would you describe what it is that you do to kind of kick off our show today?
That is one of the, like we were talking before the interview, it's one of those questions because my whole career, I've been an entertainer. I've been a mentalist. I go on stage, open for celebrities. I perform a mind reading show. But I also have been a huge student of the mind. And so I've spent all my time touring the world, meeting thought leaders and spiritual teachers. And I started to understand very early on how powerful the mind really is. So what I tell people I do is I teach people to unlock and unleash their mind power. Now, whether you're being entertained while I'm doing it or you're seeing me in a seminar, it's still the same thing. It's the fact that you've got the most amazing supercomputer ever invented inside you. And when you buy a cell phone or a toaster or a microwave or anything, you get a huge user's manual that tells you exactly how to use it, right? You get this thing and they want you to figure it out completely on your own. They never tell you how to use it. They never even tell you. My teacher used to say, Brent, you have to focus. And finally I said one day, when did we learn to focus? Did I miss that day? And she admitted she didn't really know either. And it's things like that. Like we have no idea how to use this thing. So I think it's important that, especially in this crazy world now, that we understand we've got this amazing power. Let's unlock it and make our lives better.
And so as a mentalist, for, again, people who may not have heard of you or seen a show, describe an example for me in a way that would be kind of like encapsulating it, but also capturing our audience and tell them what you might do. Because if I explain it, like my mind was blown watching you do your thing again and again. And obviously our people want to follow that and hear that thing. So just give a high profile of what your entertainment side is.
Well, I always tell people there's a little bit of both because there are some real things happening. There's, of course, some theatrical stagecraft to make it into a big show there. But I basically get on stage and I start to show people what you can do with your mind. I have somebody, pick a book, think of a word, I tell them what the word is. The finale of the show, though, is me in a chair. I'm literally on stage in a spotlight, and I just start picking up, okay, somebody was born at 718 Maple Street, somewhere in Ohio. Where are you? Somebody will stand up from the audience and they'll get a mic to them and we'll talk and I'll tell them maybe the first girl they kissed or whatever. I name something else, somebody else stands up. And by the end of this, there's 50 people standing all over the theater that I've connected with. So that's kind of what I'm known for. That's, like I said, every show usually ends with that. but it builds, it kind of just takes you from the beginning. It talks about my life, how, I thought I was stupid at math. I had a bad teacher as a kid. I showed them some amazing math things, and it takes them kind of through my story, but at the same time, I think they can parallel and see themselves because, I was an only child. I was a little chubby kid. I wanted to be a magician. I got a copy of The Magic of Believing when I was 10 years old instead of a magic book. They thought it was a magic book, but it was all about belief. So that's really what started this whole journey. And then getting paid to go around the world, I just used that time to meet the right people. And so the show nowadays is still entertaining. It's still a big, Vegas style production, but I believe I got to give people at least some actionable tools that they can leave the theater and start using. So that's kind of where I am now in this weird hybrid space.
It's so cool. And I gotta now rewind back just a few minutes in the show to what you said something, because when I think of a magic show, whether it's Penn and Teller or one of these shows, it's about making me think something and see something that's not really happening. It's almost, I don't mean deception in a negative way. It's deceiving my brain to see what I think they want me to see, right? But what you just said, Brent, when you said you give an address out of something, there's no way you've got everyone's address going into the show. That sounds more like the word you used was connection. And that to me sounds more like a gift of almost like a psychic ability. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad word to use in your world, but this gift, like if you knew that my birthday was 9/27/67, if you knew that without me telling you and without you looking, that's not a trick. That's not an illusion. That's something different. So it sounds to me like you're doing, so, I mean, like you said, there's some stage stuff, but it sounds to me like you get information somehow.
Yeah, I told you the story before we went on, but I'll tell your listeners as well that I did a meditation retreat about 15 years ago. I went to Nepal, and I meditated on and off. The last 15 years, I meditated every day, twice a day, 45 minutes each time. And I only do that because it's incredible. And it's done so much for me, from quitting drinking, smoking, became a vegetarian. It's just one thing after another. But when I first went in, the monk there said, "What do you do?" I said, "I'm a mentalist," because I was all full of myself at that time. And it was all about the applause and all about me, which is really what kind of changed everything for me. And I realized, well, this is really about them. It's about the audience. It's not about me. But he said, "Think of any word." And I did. And he said, "Lumberjack." And that was the word. And so that was, he explained, there's the human consciousness. We all have one. But then there's universal consciousness, where we're all connected to each other. And he said, if you're connected to that, going in there and connecting to someone else is easy. It's not mind reading. It's just what happens. So from that point on, my whole life changed, my career, everything, because I realized, wow, I've been faking this my whole life. Now, again, there's a lot of stagecraft. There has to be, because me sitting on stage for an hour, 90 minutes, just doing what I do would be boring. So there's a lot of other things in there. But the connection, and I'll talk about this today, but I always talk about the ABCs of mind power. The C is connection. It's not just the connection we have with each other, which we do, but it's really the connection we have to have with ourselves in order to do this. So like I said, there's a couple of easy steps. You don't have to, and the great thing about this is you don't have to go to India. You don't have to meditate for a year in a cave. You don't have to buy some course. You have everything you need right now. It's inside you. You just don't know how, you have no idea how to use it. So that's kind of been my passion, is just teaching people, how easy this is if you really just give yourself a few minutes every day.
I definitely am going to dive into the ABCs. And so before we do that though, just a couple things. Because again, I am so fascinated, like this conversation could go and go and go. And so I'm going to have to limit myself. I got two people here in the room to say, "Hey, Hoven, calm down. Right. But this has just got me so jazzed up. When you're like, I was blown away in watching, some of your stuff where you would have multiple people and you would bring their stuff together. Like one thing was, one person thought of a car, one person thought of this number, one person thought of that number. And then the car, you show a picture of that car in that color with a license plate of the number in the person's head. And I'm like, it absolutely blew my mind. Those kinds of things where you're creating, that's the entertainment part that you speak of. And that will certainly get someone's attention. When you were a kid, you said, or I think you said around 10, you wanted to be a magician. What was it that got you into this in the very beginning that led you now to the ability to do things like that?
Well, I was about five, and I was an only child in from the Midwest, and like a lot of kids like that, you looking for something to make you different, to make you stand out. So I always I went towards magic because I knew I wasn't a singer, I wasn't really that funny, I wasn't going to make it in entertainment really. I thought, well, a magician, I could do that, but I realize now, looking back on it, that those 5 years between 5 and 10, practicing tricks and doing that, it was setting me up for that day where I went to the library. I went every Saturday to get magic books, and there was a copy of The Magic of Believing that was mistakenly put on that shelf. I don't believe it was a mistake. I mean, that's one of those synchronicity moments in your life where things lead you to something for a reason. And so I took that book home in the stack, didn't realize it was, and when I got it home, I started looking at it, and it was all about the power of belief and how you can change your life with your mind. Written in the 40s, this book. And the funny thing is, when I started meeting famous people, I worked with Joan Rivers and Phyllis Diller, Don Rickles. Phyllis Diller and Joan Rivers were huge proponents of that book. And they actually mentioned, hey, have you ever read The Magic of Believing? And I said, that's the book that changed my life. That's the book that changed my life too. And it was the weirdest thing. And Phyllis Diller, I mean, she had 5 children, a husband who wouldn't work. People told her she wasn't funny. She would never make it in show business. She read this book, underlined the passages, and for a year, and then she put it into action, and it changed her life. Same thing with Joan Rivers. And it really is, it's nothing religious. It doesn't matter what you believe. It fits in with any belief system because it's not a religion. It's this idea that you've got this machine, which is what it is. You don't know how to use it. Let's figure it out. So like I said, then I became a mentalist. I went on the road. I opened for celebrities, but in the back of my mind, I was always working on this. I was working on the idea that there's more. So I would use the ability to go around the world, like I said, to meet people and to find out things and to try to, uncover more and more. Like I was on some, sleuthing. I was trying to figure out some case, but it really led me to what I think is the truth. The fact that we all live our lives inside our heads. That, that's what's going on because it's all your likes, your dislikes, everything that's happening in your life is going through the veil of your mind first. So if you can get in there and kind of start clearing out, it's like an episode of Hoarders. We've taken everything we don't like, everything that upsets us, and we've stored it inside us. And now every time anything reminds us of it, all that, not only do the thoughts come back, but if the thoughts come back of a situation that embarrassed you, are you not embarrassed? Because
Absolutely.
all the feeling comes back too. So
Yep.
if you broke up with your girlfriend and she drove a red pickup truck and now you're on the highway and you see a red pickup, you get all the feelings of the breakup because you stored that away. And so we're living our entire lives being moved in one direction or the other by this old programming. And it really is like a computer. It's like we had a blank, open, amazing computer, and we started filling it with all this crap. It's nobody else's fault. I mean, you can't blame anyone else. You can't blame your parents anymore. You can't blame God. You can't blame anyone. You've built this fake version of yourself, this ego. And so it's running your life. So I just, I started, like I said, I came up against alcohol, cigarettes. I was a millionaire at 21 and broke by 31 and then again by 40, only because when I finally made money and I thought that was going to make me happy when I make this money. And then when I made it in my early 20s and realized it was all BS, that it wasn't the secret to making me happy. I grew up in the 80s, and remember the 80s were big, everything was money, get rich. It was all TV shows with rich families, right? I was a little kid, 4 years old, and I used to watch that show Dallas, right, with
Yes.
JR.
Yep.
I watched it from 4 years old until I was a senior. I mean, it ran for like 13 years, right? So what did I think? As a kid, I was programmed by that show. I thought, man, this is the way to be. You can be mean, you can be rude, you can be conniving, you make all this money, you get all the women, you're always got a smile on your face, right? And then I made that money and I thought, well, I'm finally going to be happy. And then after a few minutes, I realized, holy crap, this is not what I thought it was going to be. So it's just everything I think pushes us. If we don't take the slap on the head, it's going to hit us harder next time. Life kind of knows what it's doing. We fight life because we want things a certain way, right? The reason life's so hard is because of what we want. We want to get what we want, and we want to make sure we don't get what we don't want. That's what we do. Our entire lives, we try to twist everything around. If you let life take you, it's going to be so much better. I mean, instead of fighting it, you just kind of, it's like you're in a rowboat and you're rowing and the water's in your face and you're going crazy. And you finally realize one day, I'm rowing in the wrong direction. If you drop the oars in the water and just sit back, the boat's just going to go along fine. And so I've just spent my entire career doing shows, but learning, implementing in my life, teaching people. And then the last, I don't know, 10 years, 8 years, I really put into the effect of I'm going to teach this to everybody I can. I'm not really, like I said, I'm not selling anything. I just teach people. This is what you need to do. Start tomorrow morning. And I really think that's how we change the world, right? It's not by strong arming each other. It's not by forcing someone else to change. It's like you change yourself. The people around you start to get inspired. They're like, wow, what's going on with him? They've known you, right? They start to change. And then that's how it happens. It's not any kind of strong arm tactic that ends us up with wars. And then whoever's going to win is going to have the biggest missile, right? It's not that. It's the fact that you work on yourself, forget about everyone else. And then once you change, things are completely different, but then the people around you start to change too.
That is such wisdom. And to know that you're able to deliver that through in part the show, and then as the follow-up to the show, the seminars and the things that you're doing, the courses that you're providing for people is amazing. And it reminds me, so I'm on a search to show. I have a word of the year every year, and this year is joy for me. And I've come to, so for this, I'm a very, very content person. I'm a very happy person. And before, when the year started, I thought, joy is something that feels cellular to me, because I really feel this overwhelming joy in moments rather than as a constant, but I'm very satisfied, very content, very happy on average. And so I'm thinking about this, and I run across this guy named Michael Singer from the Untethered Soul. And the message that you just shared is literally what I've been learning this month of January. I've spent a lot of time with him now on his work. And it just does talk about this thing of letting, like the analogy he uses is if the wind comes in to a blade of grass, it goes by the blade of grass, and then the blade of grass just continues to grow. But if you instead of letting the wind go through, if you try to stop the wind, the emotion with that wind, specifically negative emotion, gets trapped down into the system and cannot come back up until it's released again. So if we can release it in the first place or never trap it, that's good. And I hear you saying that, and it's just so beautiful now that I'm getting it in a second, right? I'm hearing that same message from a second perspective. And that leads me now to these ABCs. I really want to focus on this ABC manual that you talk about of using our mind. So if you wouldn't mind, man, take us through that.
For sure. And first of all, Michael Singer, I love. I've been following his work for years and years and years. His first book was in 1973, I think. People think the Untethered Soul, the Surrender Experiment, but he's been doing this for so long. And he really is. I mean, if you ever meet him, he is the coolest, most laid back. I mean, you can tell he's living what he teaches, because nothing really, I mean, he was a billionaire at one point, and I think he started WebMD. He had some huge company, but he was being investigated for some kind of insider trading or something, and was in deep trouble. He didn't do anything. It ended up being a setup, but he lived through that without ever letting himself be pulled down. I mean, he stayed, where he is. So the ABCs of mind power. These are the three things you start doing today, tomorrow, to start getting control of your life. So the A is awareness. That means you've got, and Michael, he calls it, I forget what he calls the voice in your head, but I always like to call it, it's like you have this bitchy roommate. You have this person that's inside your head, narrating your life almost completely negatively. And you have to ask yourselves, if that was a real person, how long would you be in this relationship, right? You wouldn't be stuck in a room with somebody like that. So you've got this voice in your head. The problem is, we're on autopilot about 90% of the day. So what that means is that voice is normally talking in the background. It's talking, with your subconscious. You don't really know what it's saying. And the fact that the voice was made when you were a kid, like when we're born, we're blank slates. When we're first born, think about it. And you're thinking of the first few years, when kids are happy, they laugh. When they're sad, they cry. They immediately get over things. They go out and they pretend to be all sorts of things. And then they start to get programmed by the people around us. I mean, parents and teachers and siblings and coaches and the media, that's all programming. And it's generational programming from your family. So boys do this, girls do that, people with money are evil, whatever that programming is during the first 8 years of your life. For the rest of your life, that's the old tape that's going to run in your mind. That is the voice that's going to start talking. So what happens is, there's two things going on. There's the voice you can make talk. Like if you're trying to think of something from your past, you're trying to figure out someone's name, you can activate it. But then there's the voice you're driving down the road. It says, remember the birthday party when you were 7 and you peed your pants and everyone laughed at you? Where's that voice come from? Because that's the one that we're worried about. That's the voice that just, it's like a mechanism that just throws it automatically, right? So you've got to become aware what the voice is saying inside your head. And it's not easy because, especially now with this fast-paced world. So what I tell people is you name the voice in your mind. I did this a long time ago. So you give that mechanism a name, the voice that just starts talking, the voice that is usually negative. I named mine Carl a long time ago. And what it does, it sounds like such a stupid, like a Saturday Night Live sketch. Remember with the guy looking in the mirror? Oh, you're
Yes.
great. And you're okay.
Yeah, you're good enough. You're strong enough, and people love
People
you.
like you. Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like that, but it's not, because what it does a couple of things geniusly. One thing, it gives your lower mind, like your lower mind, you've given that voice, that name. So what it does is now when the voice starts talking and you say, well, there goes Carl again. You look at the voice like a kid. It's a petulant child who's not getting his way. It starts to lose power because for us, we think that's the voice of God. It's the voice of the future. It's some voice we have to listen to. It literally pulls us into something and we're off. It starts thinking, it starts worrying, it starts doing something, and our consciousness is gone. It's completely moved to whatever the voice brought up. So by naming it, there goes Carl again, you kind of laugh at it. It loses its power. It's like anything you drag into the light, some big scary thing, it loses its power whenever you pull it out and you kind of look at it, because it was made when you were not mature, when you weren't logical, you were a little kid. So when you start understanding, okay, there's a voice, a mechanism that talks in my head. I don't have to listen to what it says, but now I want you to start paying attention to it. So by naming it, you start to realize, okay, there's Carl again. But the second part of this, you get some Post-it notes. You get 10, 15 Post-it notes, write the name of the voice. So Carl, in my case, place them around the house, the car, the office, in the closets, places, some places you go a lot, some places you don't. You place them all over the place. And then for a week, 7 days, all you have to do is carry a little spiral notepad and a pen. And every time you see one of those Post-it notes, it's just a trigger to stop. That second, what's on my mind? Because you're going to know, because you're going to get the trail end of whatever is going on up in that crazy monkey mind. You're going to get it. You don't get pulled into it. You don't get mad about it. You don't talk about it. You just write it down. Whatever you got there, you write down. That's it. That goes on for 7 days. At the end of 7 days, read your notebook, because you are going to find the most screwed up, unproductive BS you have ever read in your life. And now you see, wow, this has it has no power anymore. It starts to really loosen its grip. So that's the first thing. You become aware of what the voice is saying, write it down, look at it after 7 days. That's the first step. It's so easy. Again, nothing to buy, nowhere to go. Do it where you are right now. But it will start to separate you from this programming. It's so intertwined because we've intertwined the programming with the thought patterns, with the emotions. So like I said, it all comes rushing back up together. And what most people do, and I know Michael Singer talks about that, it's like you push it back down. It comes up, it's trying to get out. I mean, those thought patterns, that's energy, those emotions, it's not meant to be stuck in you, and you've kept it there. So every time it comes up, most people push it right back down. They get uncomfortable. It's like when somebody says, don't go there with me. Like, don't go there with me. You know what that means? You're getting close to some of my stuff.
My hot buttons.
Right. And everybody has those, and everybody's different. That's why I mean, think about it, how amazing it is any of us get along when we've all lived an existence that no one else has ever lived, ever will live. We've seen, I mean, the moment in front of us is different from the moment in front of everyone else who has ever been or will be. So two people are never equal because they have strengths, weaknesses, their past, everything's different. So when you start to realize, look, it's just old programming, and you're seeing the proof of it. It's easy for me to say that, but when you read the things you wrote down, you're going to know right away. It is just programming. It doesn't make any logical sense in your life. The grip starts to loosen. That's the A.
And Brent, just real quick on A. So if I hear you right, you take 10 or 15 notepads or little sticky notes. You write down the name of your monkey mind guy or gal. You put those around, and then when you see that, it's a trigger to just say, what am I thinking? Like if I'm just thinking something neutral, do I write that down? Like,
sure,
oh, I'm just thinking about the Super Bowl coming up, or I'm thinking about my workout that I got to do. You just write down everything, not just the, man, that doesn't make any sense that I'm judging this person driving in front of me that's being an idiot right now, right? So just whatever. Is that what we do?
Yeah, because if you don't do that, what's going to happen is you're going to start to be selective. Well, should I write this down? And you're going to get that lower mind, which is what you're trying to get away from, involved because it's the only thing when you, this is what people don't understand. If you ask your mind a question, you're trying to find an answer to a question, it only has the information you've programmed into it from your past. So think about it. That's why it's always, I can't try this because I failed in the past. Like it's always that information. There's never anything new. So if you start to try to go, okay, is this worth writing down? No. I want you to write down whatever's on your mind and forget it. You don't get pulled into it. You don't judge it. You don't do anything. Yeah, of course, there's going to be some other things, but you're going to be blown away by how much of it is unproductive. That voice, I mean, you can trigger, like I said, you're triggering the voice sometimes, but it also is getting used to what you're constantly thinking about. I've got to do this. So that's kind of the voice too. So by arguing with it or trying to figure out what I should keep and what I shouldn't, you're really going to kind of screw yourself. So it's better just to write down whatever it is. And then at the end of the, you only have to do it for 7 days because there'll be so much information, it'll blow you away.
Nice. Okay. We got A. Let's go to B.
Okay. So the B is belief, and the belief is paramount. You know, I'm sure that you've met people that have very little talent and an overabundance of self-belief, right? Those people are very often much more successful than somebody with a whole lot of talent and no self-belief, because self-belief is really paramount, because until you get it, nobody's really going to believe in you, not the way that you need them to, right? And self-belief comes, the great thing about the ABCs, the belief is not something you have to activate with some kind of mechanism or by doing a certain thing. By becoming aware of what the voice is saying, the power starts to loosen, right? The belief starts to be created automatically because you start to go down the road of, maybe I can do this. Maybe my dreams that I forgot about are really possible. The belief will start to appear. And the great thing, I call it rocket fuel, because it really is. A lot of people need proof. They need evidence. They need something to push them farther. They'll try something. If they don't see some kind of result, they don't really want to do it anymore. This is rocket fuel, because when you get a burst of this, it pushes you, it motivates you forward to go forward. So the belief, again, is not something you have to go out and somehow achieve. It works automatically by becoming aware what the voice is saying. But without that belief, there are people that are highly successful that, but without self-belief, you're never going to get to where it is you want. Not completely, because it's really a paramount. You've seen people walk into a room. They don't have to be the best looking person. They don't have to be the richest person. There's something magnetic about the person because they have self-belief. And so many people don't, that it's attractive. It's magnetic because a lot of people, they're living their, like I said, they're living life in their head. They've got internal battles and fights, and they're literally fighting with someone from years ago. They're fighting with their dead mother. They're doing this and that. They're not living in reality. Somebody who cultivates belief, also, it happens in reality. It doesn't happen in your mind. I mean, real belief is coming in reality. So that starts to happen automatically. So the belief is nothing you have to worry about. If you do the awareness, the belief's going to come automatically.
And do you find that belief comes in the form of momentum? Like when I would coach people, or when I'm still talking with them, whether they're on our team or in outside places, when they say, man, I just don't have enough time. That's their belief. They already have a belief. It's just not a self-serving one in a positive way. Then I'll ask them, well, how much time are you talking about? And they're like, well, I wish I had an extra day. And I'm like, do you have an extra 5 minutes? Like, what would you do with that day? And they say, I would, this, that. And I say, well, do you have an extra 5 minutes? Well, yeah, I guess I have an extra 5 minutes. Well, if you wanted to get really smart and that's what you're going to do with your day, could you read in that 5 minutes? Because if you start believing that you have 5 minutes, now you can have 6 or 10. And that belief gains momentum is kind of what I found in my experience. So with what I hear you say, get the awareness right, and then the belief starts to go. Do you have people look for where they already have the thing that they don't realize they have? Is that part of it? Or where do you see belief kind of gaining legs and traction, so to speak?
Well, it definitely can be, but it's different for everyone. It's different depending on what your level of self-belief is now. Some people have zero. Some, it depends on that. I'll tell you, when I was a kid, I had a teacher a second grade, who said, you're never going to get the math. I just thought I was horrible at math because I had a teacher who wasn't a great teacher, wasn't good at inspiring, wasn't good at teaching really. But so it was one of those, you're too stupid for this. You're not going to be able to get this. I really took that, which is just somebody's words. It's just somebody's bad mood coming out, right? But I took that and made it into a belief, because over time you take a thought that somebody in authority says, especially, you think about it, you obsess over it, it becomes a thought pattern, and then it becomes a belief. And I lived that for a couple of years thinking I'm no good at math. And it was really when I started working on all of this and the belief started coming, and this is 11, 12, 13, even back then, I realized I took someone's opinion. That's what we all do. You let someone steer you completely. It takes over your life. I mean, one group of words from one person made me think for 3 years that I couldn't do math. So when the belief comes, it'll come in whatever ways you're blocking your self-belief now. I mean, it'll come in those areas normally where you weren't even looking before, because you just thought, because that's what a belief is, right? I'm no good at math. I'm just no good at math. No matter what I do, I'm no good at math, right? That's a belief. But when it starts to appear that, you're getting, wow, I'm not so bad at this. I can do this. It happens slowly, but it happens, like I said, in that order. So you've got to become aware first. The awareness fuels the belief. And then we get to the C, which I told you is connection.
Well, I'll tell you what, I want to stick on belief here for just a minute, because you struck a chord with me, Brent, when you were just talking about your math teacher, because I had the same thing happen in high school, where I was a high school football player. I put my head down on a tackle. I got hurt. I ended up going to the chiropractor. The chiropractor fixed me, had me playing in state championship games. Like everything was that. So that became that was my why. That's where I was going. I was going to go to chiropractic school, and so I'm in my math class as I think I was a junior. Must have been, I was either junior or senior, I'm probably a junior. And so it was trig or whatever that it was. And this math, I mean, the guy was beloved by a lot of people, and he was kind of an informal math teacher. And he literally says to me one day, he goes, you can't, I'll say it was trig. You can't even get trig. How are you ever going to get into chiropractic school? Like literally shut my whole brain down of like, maybe he's right. And it took me a long time to get over that process. Then I had to switch my motivation to say, I'm going to prove you wrong, right? So then that had to drive something in me to say, well, he may be right, but he ain't going to be right enough to keep me from my dream, right? So that had to be there. So now I would like to, when it comes to the belief side, say, from your perspective, how do we as individuals help other people? Like we got our belief, but what he did to me, or maybe for me, right? At the end of the day, all things happen for us if we look at it that way. What your math teacher did, what my math teacher did, how can we take a cue and a lesson from that to be then something that we watch what we say and how we say it to others around us to encourage their self-belief as opposed to being a detractor of what they can't do? Do you know what I'm saying there?
Yeah, that has to do with the connection, because the fact that we're all connected to each other is so important. The connection I talk about is the connection you have with yourself, but the connection we have with each other means that we're not separate. We're not some little tiny inconsequential thing. And when you start to work on yourself like this, you realize that you love everyone. There really is a connection. It's like other people. I don't want to say anything that is going to discourage you. I don't want to. You're doing that for an ego reason. There's only one reason somebody strikes out like that. I mean, it's got something to do with them. It's not anything to do with the person that they're directing it toward. So when you work on yourself, you don't want to belittle anyone else, because it's like belittling yourself. You don't want to fight with people. You start to realize, I tell people all the time, once you do these things, and we'll talk about the C in a second, but when you do them, you start to realize, I am this amazing, it's like Michael Singer says, we're on a rock in the middle of nowhere, hurtling through space, right? And you're worried about what Mary thinks of your dress, what the stain on your pants, what kind of car you drive. That's what we're doing. We're living in a little tiny, tiny consciousness. It's like there's nothing, we only can understand. It's like having a shot glass size consciousness. You can only understand that little bit. But the more you work on yourself, the more you change. And like I said earlier, you inspire other people, but you're also very, very, you don't want to do that to other people. And it's not so much you're going to go out there and be a crusader and look for people that are doing that to others, but when it does happen in your life and you're there, you may step in and not start a fight. That's the other great thing, because you're removing the ego, so you don't have that need right away to be proven right or to that you normally have. So what you're doing in that scenario is just maybe as a teaching moment. You're talking about maybe what happened to you and in front of, with the people, but you're not yelling at the guy for saying that. Because again, people don't know any better. The mother, the father, the generational programming, you've got all kinds of people's ideas in you. There are many people who are doing jobs now they don't even want to do. Like my dad wanted me to be a lawyer because I could argue well. That was his idea, right? But I know people that are doing a job that they never really wanted, that it's going to be good money. You need to do this, or from a family of doctors or whatever that is. It's so important when you work on yourself, nobody else can get in there and take control of your mind. Because right now, marketing, advertising, all of that is programming. I mean, it's all, and when you're susceptible to that, you can be pushed any way the wind blows. But when you get control of your mind, the greatest gift of all of that is nobody can use your mind against you anymore, because that's what's happening. I mean, you got to look like this. You got to drive this. You got to have this. So when you start to stand in your own power instead of being swayed every way, all of the other stuff falls away, because you just realize it's not degrading someone else. We do that to lift ourselves up. But when you don't need to do that anymore, when you're already where you want to be, when you're already living, in alignment to your truth and your passion, whatever it is, you just want to help. So you come at it from a different angle, and for one thing, you're not the person who's going to do that to anyone else. That's for sure.
Right. And one more thought on this. You keep spurring more things for me with your wisdom here on beliefs is I think there's one thing that we need to be careful of as humans, and that is if we're ego-based, right? If we're really living in ego, if someone tells me, hey, you need to pick it up here, if I'm too ego-based and I'm like, no, my beliefs say you're wrong, I'm right. We're not open to fair critique to help us get better. On the other side, if we are that person where we're living in ego, we can kind of say things like you said earlier to push ourselves up and make ourselves live better, as opposed to, as John Maxwell would say, leading with caring and candor, because you want what's best for that other person. So we all know there's all room for us to grow and to become better and more, and to be open to receiving that with our belief system still intact, and knowing that, man, Brent, when you tell me something, you're telling me because you love me and because you want what's best for me. That allows me to come at it to truly grow. And then on the other side, I get plenty of opportunities to have what's known as fierce conversations in our world now. But all the people that I'm having them with, I make real sure that they know that I'm coming at this not to beat them over the head with a mallet, but rather to say, man, this is how you can grow. And I want to talk through it with you. We're going to create a solution for you. So I think, that belief side, we got to make sure that our belief is right and not egocentric from both sides of the giving of critique equation.
Yeah, and can you imagine if we all did what you're saying, the world you'd have world peace instantly, because it's right. You would, if you looked at everyone else like a brother, a sister, a family member, and you really cared about what happens to them. It takes the ego away. It takes the ego out of the picture, because the ego is all about me. Obviously, what do I need? What can I get? I've got to get mine before he gets his, or there won't be any left. It's that thinking, the us versus them, man versus woman, black versus white. They create this whole picture that's made to separate us, because it's much easier to control a bunch of people that are fighting each other than it is to control a mass of people that are standing up for what's right. Because now it's like you don't know what's right anymore. There's just so much information. So it's that coming back into alignment with yourself, your true self, your consciousness, the soul you. That's what it is. And you don't make those kind of decisions anymore, because you're really living from a place, where you're not looking for the outside world to make you happy. That's what everybody does, right? It's like, when I get the car, I'll be happy. The husband, the boyfriend, the girlfriend, the house, the smaller butt, the new nose, whatever it is. And then guess what? You know this, right? You get that thing finally. And how long are you happy? It happened to me with the big house. I'm not happy. I wasn't happy for very long. because then you want the next thing. And it puts you on a hamster wheel for the rest of your life. So yeah, I mean, working on yourself is the total key here, because you don't have to fix anything else except work on you. And I'm not even saying fix you. You're not broken. You're just programmed with a bunch of crap. It's not any kind of, you don't have to, it's like when you go to a therapist and you have to dredge up all the past and then you go home and you feel like crap, right? You don't have to do that here. These steps, they're actionable, easy, movable steps, but they don't require you to delve back into it where you have to feel all of that again. Now, it's going to come up because that's what happens. I mean, these things were stored in you and, you stored them. You were uncomfortable when you stored them. You're going to be a little uncomfortable when they come up, but when you let them go, that's going to change everything. And the connection, like I said, the connection with each other is one thing, but I talk about the connection you have to have with yourself. So
is that the letting go process? The connection, is that where we do that?
You can definitely do what Michael talks about, which is letting go of little things. And he talks about weather and he talks about the car in front of you, right? Which is true, because every time you hold on to something like that, it becomes bigger, 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 bigger. If you let the little things go, the big things will come up because now you're not letting all the little things, influence you. So that's a great way. But I talk about meditation because it changed my life and it changed the lives of the people I work with. So I think now in this fast-paced, crazy world, you have to do something where you're sitting alone in a room for a few minutes every day, connecting to yourself, because there's just so much going on now. As soon as you have a free second, you grab your phone and you're scrolling on your phone, right? And in the late 80s, I think we had an attention span of 7 minutes. It's 7 seconds today, which is why everything is so fast color and you're scrolling because they're trying to catch your attention, in that scroll thing that we do, right? Every moment, though, is filled up because it's filled up with worries. It's filled up. We live in the past, worried about what we did back then. We're in the future, worried about what's going to happen or what we hope doesn't happen. And we're only in the moment for like 20% of the day, which is why that tape is running, because you're on autopilot most of the time. So sitting alone with yourself in a room, it's hard, first of all, because most people know what's going to happen. The voice is going to start talking. The moment you're sitting there, it's going to say, why are we doing this? This is stupid. This can't work, blah, 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 blah. Or it's really going to torture you and start bringing up things from the past or whatever. That's beautiful, because it's people think meditation is sitting and pushing thoughts away. That's not what it is in this case. I want you to see what the thoughts are. It works exactly the same way as the Post-it notes, because now you're sitting, you're not moving, your eyes are closed, right? And that voice is going to go into overdrive and you're going to hear everything it says, because now you're focusing, you're there focused, right? So I have been doing the same thing for years. It's just counting. You just count. You do 1 to 20, 1 to 30, whatever it is, 1 to 20 works good. You get to 20, you go back to 1. That's all. So the moment that you go to 50, you've gone too far, you go back to 1. There's never, just like the Post-it notes or writing down what's on your mind, you never judge it. You never get sucked into it. You never get mad. You never try to figure out what number was I on no, you go right back to 1. And what that does, it does a couple of amazing things. It gives the lower mind a job. It gives that bitchy mind a counting job. So that mind is going to do that job. Then you can transcend it. As the consciousness, you can go above it. You can make this connection. And I'll tell you, when you make the connection for the first time, if you only stay there for a second, you'll do it for the rest of your life, because it is exactly what you said. It's joy. Joy is in us all the time, but we have so much crap in there that's blocking it. It only can get out every once in a while. So we start to think it has something to do with getting a car made us feel that joy, or winning the lottery. So then we start to think it's dependent on something out there that has to fit to make this joy feeling. It's not. It's an inner thing, like everything. You can't go out and buy confidence, courage, love, inspiration. Those are not outer world things, but we all think that. I'll get this I'll be happy when I get that. So once you connect to yourself, like I said, you sit feet flat on the floor, hands on your knees. All you're going to do is count 1 to 20 over and over. The lower voice is counting, and I'll tell you what it's going to sound like. So again, remember, this is silent, but just for you to hear this, it's going to be like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why am I sitting here? My ass is sore. My arm is tired. What are we having for lunch? As soon as you realize 1, 2, 3, 4, this is boring. 1, 2, that's it. You do it for 5 minutes to start. Okay. And if you can add a minute or two every couple of weeks, if you can get to 15 minutes, that's all you need. You can transform. That's it. You don't have to go anywhere, do anything, buy anything. That's it. Because you will connect to yourself for the first time. Not since childhood has the connection been this open, because now you're what you're doing is you're strengthening your focus. Like I said, the teacher that told me, you have to focus. You talk about creating an unbelievable, it's not a muscle, but I call it the focus muscle, because you're constantly pulling back your focus without any argument, without any getting dragged into it. 1, 2, 3, whatever, one. It's every time you do that, it pulls back your focus, pulls back your focus, pulls back your focus. When you start going out into your regular life, that will seep out. That connection comes out. The ability to have space comes out. And what I tell people all the time, the moment you'll know is when somebody who normally makes you so mad or normally POs you to no end appears in front of you. Okay, somebody from your life, and they're your person. As soon as they start, you get sucked in. You're fighting, you're yelling. They start, and all of a sudden, things slow down. It's like slow motion for just a second, which is all you need. It's giving you space. So normally they start, you get sucked in, you're fighting. A week later, you realize, wow, I've been out of it for a week. And that's if you're lucky. Sometimes it's a month or a year or a whole lifetime. You never realize that there's anything else. So they start talking, they start making you upset. There's time now. All of a sudden, that was never there before. You'll see this little bit of space. And all you've got to do is ask yourself one thing. You have to have enough time to be there in your power position. And all you do is ask yourself, is this worth my peace? And guess what? 99.999% of the time, it's not. That's all it takes, because you're seeing it for the first time without the trigger being pulled into it and being on the inside of it. You're looking at it from the outside. In that moment, the space starts to get bigger, bigger, bigger. People have said things like, I didn't realize that anything had even happened until something happened to me that happened last week, and I didn't even realize it didn't upset me anymore. That's what'll happen. So when you connect to yourself, you meditate, you're rebooting your system almost. You're sitting there and you're not, again, pushing the thoughts away. The counting gives the lower mind a job. You transcend it. When you do, you connect to universal consciousness. Eventually that will happen. The voice will become almost non-existent. Eventually it'll slow way down. And even when it talks, it doesn't hold power like it does now. So we're living inside this cage that we built. We've got a key in our pocket. We didn't know it. All you got to do is open the door. It's super duper easy. And meditation is not religious. Like I said, it's nothing that it has to change your belief system. I mean, religion's been talked about in every spiritual text since the beginning of time, as a Buddhist especially, but they understood. And that's why that monk meditated 12 hours a day. I don't recommend that. I do 90 minutes a day, and I do it. I'm telling you, I'm going to London Saturday. I have to get up for a flight. I'll get up an hour, 2 hours earlier just to get this in. And I only do that. I can promise you, with my schedule, I only do things now that work for me. And how many things can you think of that you can do that are free, that you can do anywhere, that you can, if you put this, think of it like a tool. This is a tool to get control of your mind. You can use it anywhere. I've used it on airplanes, in the back of taxis, wherever I am. If I have, a few moments, I'll do it. But I always do 45 first thing. So again, start with 5. If you get up to 15, that's all you need to do. But do it first thing in the morning. The only thing that would trump that is maybe if you have to go to the bathroom. Okay. But anything else you do, like your coffee or whatever, do it after, because you want to get that moment when you are between sleep and awake. You're in a gray area. It's very rare during the day to be able to access your subconscious because there's so much going on. In that first moments of the morning, you are right there between awake and asleep. They're in a gray area. You meditate there. And then I tell people, meditate at lunch. If you do it at night, it's the energy it creates is going to keep you up. If you do it at noon, it's going to give you energy to go through the rest of your day. So again, you sit silently and try not to move, because your body's going to go, my arm itches, my back is sore, and the more you fidget, that's another trick it's trying to do to get you off. If you stay there completely not moving, doing that in your head, that counting in your head, it's magic. I mean, it really is magic. It does something, and we don't all understand everything. I don't know what's going on, but you're connected to something, that quantum field, that where everything comes. You're in something where if you ask yourself a question, you'll very often get an answer that you weren't expecting, or that wasn't something that your lower mind came up with, because you're connected to everything in this place. And I think that's really our real state. It's just so covered and blocked. And, my mom did this, my dad did this, I don't like this. Remember the time this scared me? And it's just like so much crap that you've kept blocking your joy. And then you put your joy or your happiness dependent on someone else. And then when they leave, then that hurts you. And it becomes such a monster. It grows and grows and grows over your lifetime. So now when you start taking things away and not adding anything else, you're getting to an amazing place. Because again, it's not just, it's doing what you said, letting go of little things, because you're not adding anymore. If you don't do that every day, that the guy in front of you makes you mad, or the weather, or you've got a stain on your pants, something, that is going to be longer until you can get to where you want to go. By releasing the little things, you're making more space. You're making less and less of this stuff that's going to control you. And then the big stuff will come up. I mean, the big things will come up, and you're not going to be able to do it in the first try or the second try, but you're going to be able to do it eventually. And you'll know when something big passes, and many times in meditation, something will pass. I'll be crying. I mean, you won't even know what's going on, and you'll realize later, wow, this has no hold on me anymore, or the hold is diminished a lot. So meditation does this without, you don't have to chant something or work on some spell or read some book. It will do it all for you if you just sit there and count or do a mantra in your head. Anything you're doing to trick your mind. So if you can say God over and over and over again. You can do anything that's kind of tricking the lower mind. You will make that connection if you do that without doing anything else.
That is so impressive. And I think if I'm summarizing all this up, we definitely want to know that we are in control, that we are not victims, that these things, that we are where we are because of what's happened to us, for sure, but we allowed it to have a certain impact. And sometimes that's good, sometimes it's bad. When we change our beliefs and then get connected to our highest self, and regardless of your spiritual tradition, that's going to be the recipe for us moving forward into this place. And man, this has been such an incredible adventure for me, like mind candy for me, right? I love this. I love this. It reminds me of so many speakers, whether it's Tony Robbins or, Jim Rohn, some of these people that I love to follow. This was kind of a nice summary along with talking about the entertainment side. I would like to have you share how people can get a hold of you if they want to, see the entertainment, which is worth, I mean, you're playing Vegas. Like, that tells you that you got some skills, man. And so if people want to see that, how can they get a taste of that? And then for this deeper stuff, this personal growth stuff, how do they connect with you?
I love that. Thank you. If you go to Brent Webb promo, so BRENTWEBB promo.com, that's the entertainment side. And you'll see the shows and the things. If you go to brentwebb.com, you'll see what I do with everyone else, which is teaching people how to do it. Again, you don't have to buy anything there. If you want to go deeper, there are tons of free resources on my website. My whole goal now is, I've had a great career. I've done everything I wanted to do, but it's hollow, because it's not, up on stage getting applause is, at the end of the day, you're not giving really anything. That's lasting. So this has really just kind of given me a fire that I haven't had since I was, in my early 20s, because it's allowing me to reach out to people, no matter where you are, no matter where you're watching this from, no matter what sex you are, age you are, it doesn't matter. You are literally have a bunch of stories in your head that you think are true, that if you look at them with a little bit of awareness, you'll realize are not true, and it will release you from these handcuffs that you've been in your whole life. So that's all I want. I mean, that's all I think we should want for each other, because we can change the world that way if everybody just starts working on themselves. So brentwebb.com, take a look there, and there's tons of free resources. But whatever you do, just give yourself another chance. We give everyone else a second chance, a third chance, a 312th chance, right? How many chances have you given yourself? Really? You could murder someone and be out of jail in 30 years, right? Your mind never lets you off the hook for something you've done when you were a kid. It will still talk about it and tell you how horrible you were when you're 90 for something you did when you were 8 years old, because it doesn't let you loose until you decide it's time to leave. And when you do, everything changes. So you got this. Wherever you're watching this from, you got this.
I love that. And I'll tell you what, we're definitely going to see what we can do to get your name out there to come do the shows and drive people towards your just your passion project and your purpose project of helping us all grow. I feel like I've grown today, and I'm sure everyone watching and listening has felt the same. For those of you who are in the audience, this is one of those moments where you can share this with someone, and we would appreciate it. We'd appreciate the likes and the engagements and the thumbs up and the ding for the heart notifications, all of it. We appreciate all of it, because when people like Brent are making a difference and it makes a difference in your life, that means our mission is being held up too. So do all those things for us. Please let us know what you like. Let Brent know that you love this. And then if there's other topics or speakers that you would like to have sharing their message on making a difference, let me know. You can reach me at jim@ramoslaw.com, and I'll be happy to reach back out to you, and we'll see what we can do to get these kind of guests on. But in the meantime, Brent, thank you, thank you, thank you. I hope you have a great show in London, and I would look forward to, if you're ever in Denver, please let me know, because I want to make sure that I connect with you in person or see your show, or just like you have lit my fire today. I'm ready to go. And, look out, Gabe and Alexis. That could be bad for you guys. I might drain you with all the love and positivity coming up here. So Brent, thank you again for joining us, my friend.
Thank you, my friend. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely.